My name is Joe Dalton, entrepreneur and business coach. Welcome to Breakthrough Brands. Each week we bring you an inspirational story and an insight to the minds of some of the top business leaders, authors and mentors from around the globe. Whatever is needed to make you shine in life and business, you'll find it here.
On this week's show, we have Kirra Sherman. Kirra is an intuition coach, public speaker, and the author of Living Intuition, where she shares how living intuition impacts your entire way of life for more fulfillment and possibilities. She's been supporting people with intuitive experiences for over 7 years. Through Kirra's coaching of knowing yourself and your life more deeply, self-doubt dissolves and world perspective change. This allows for an elevated and fulfilling life where extraordinary experiences happen on a daily basis.
Hi Kirra, how are you?
Hey, I'm well, thank you. How are you?
Kirra, there's something that came to my mind when I was doing a bit of research about yourself, and it was some people have it, some people lose it, and some people don't even know they have it. And that is intuition. And in saying that, you were an intuition coach. Would I be correct?
Yes.
Where did it all start?
Oh boy. Well, first of all, I would actually say that everyone has it. And it's something that you can learn to develop, kind of like a muscle if you're going to the gym. And, it's sort of a misnomer that, women are more intuitive than men. It's actually not true. Some of the most intuitive some of the most intuitive people that I actually know are men. Having said that, it started for me about 8 years ago, although if I look back along the course of my life, I actually have realized that I've made a lot of intuitive decisions without realizing that it was actually intuition that was calling me in a certain direction. It was just an inner knowing, and it wasn't until later that I learned about intuition that I realized, that decision that I made, way, way further back than 8 years ago when I started learning about intuition was actually intuition. But yeah, I met a mentor actually about 8 years ago, and I was very much looking for a different way of life. I didn't know what I was looking for. I just knew I was looking for something. It felt to me like something was missing. I was like, there's got to be a different way. I was working at a job that I was really good at. It was financially successful, but I didn't feel fulfilled. And so I just kept looking for, there's got to be some other way. And when I started learning about intuition, it really resonated with me. And I thought, you know what, this is my way. It's maybe not everybody else's way, but it's definitely my way. And so I started following my intuition very actively, and my life has sort of turned upside down as a result.
Well, you say some of the people that you've met or spoke to, the ones that would use it and feel it a lot. I would be one of those people. I go with my gut all the time, and sometimes it even scares me. A lot of people would say that being intuitive, I would get calls from people asking me business questions just for me to sound them out and sound out the decision before they would make that decision. So I've used it a long time, and it's worked out quite well. But a question I have for you: How do you teach people to get past all that white noise, and so they can follow and listen to their gut?
So by white noise, I assume you mean thinking.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, it's amazing. The more that you actually follow your intuition, which some people call, the intuition, their heart. Some people, the gut, there's just an inner knowing, to kind of describe it for anybody who's listening a little bit more. But, the first thing is you have to be feeling. I think one of the biggest impediments to intuition is that people oftentimes don't want to feel. And the reason why they don't want to feel is because there's like what I call backed up emotions in their body. They're not taking the time to feel their emotions, and therefore they're not connected with their body and being in presence as much as they can in order to actually listen to their intuition. So they're not feeling, and therefore they're not catching what the feeling inside their body is, because intuition is very much a feeling. So the first step to going beyond the thinking mind or the white noise, as you call it, is actually to be in your body and to be present and to be here. And the second thing is, the more that it's kind of a catch-22, the more that you follow your intuition, the less noise there is up there. A lot of times the noise is a result of you going against your inner feeling, or it's you're putting so much attention onto the mind and you're weighing pros and cons. If you can just stop weighing the pros and cons, take the value off what your mind is analyzing, and it's an amazingly simple process. You just go to, okay, what do I actually feel? Throw out the pros and cons, throw out the analytical process, and just feel like, what do you know to be true for you? That's my process.
It's like someone asked me a question when I was telling them that you were coming on the show, and they asked, how can you tell if it's your mind or your gut? So, and it was an example that they used that, jumping out in front of a car or jumping off a cliff or something, how do they know that? Are they making a decision? Is it my mind telling me to do this, or my gut? How can you distinguish between both?
Sure.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, of course. I mean, that's one of the biggest things. I mean, the first thing you've got to throw out is that desire to do the right thing. It's like the minute you start playing that game, you get a little bit lost. It's like, you worry whether you're making the right or wrong decision, too much. You'll know. As soon as you make the decision, you'll know. You'll be like, oh, there's an empty feeling there. That must have been my thinking mind. When I make a decision that's real and true and guttural for me, it usually feels lighter.
Okay, that's interesting.
So there's a lightness there. It's like, yes, I just have to do that. And the other thing is there's no reason. How I always know when somebody is following their intuition or what they love? And I asked my partner this the other day. I said to him, I go, well, why do you want to do that? He's a chef. And I said, well, why do you want to open a restaurant? A different one. He has a restaurant right now, but he goes, because I love it. And there was no, because it's going to make me money, because it's going to give me this, because I'm going to be famous, or, it was just like so simple. It's because it's what I love. And I know that that's always something that, there's no reason to it. It's like, you always know that you're following that feeling, when it's, there's just no reasons to it. There's no agendas. There's no, there's 6 reasons why I have to do this. That's usually somebody who's been thinking a lot. Well, somebody who, has reasons to do something. What you love, your intuition, it's really illogical. And that's why it's sometimes difficult to follow, and why your friends or, whoever asks you that question, it's like, well, how do you know the difference? Well, usually there's no reason. It's just something you love. It's simple.
Is it the 3-second rule? I think Lisa Nichols uses it, and I've heard it before. It's the intuition kicks in the first 3 seconds, and act on that, because then the mind kicks in after that and starts throwing in all the doubt, and that don't do that. Why would you want to do that? Who said that? And sorts of. Right. So I think it's a 3-second rule. Follow on it. But what about that? You wake up in the middle of the night, and it says, call such and such. Say you're trying to do some business, or you're doing a bit of research, and suddenly this thing comes into your mind, goes, call such and such, but you can't call them because you're driving down the motorway, and if you do, you'll have a crash. How do you deal with that sort of stuff, that you get that impulse to do something, but you know that you're in the wrong place to do it?
To me, it's not that time sensitive. When you give me that example, it's like, you make a note of it in your mind. The reason why I think that you often will get those intuitive hits while you're driving down the motorway or while you're in the shower is that you're not thinking. You have this creative space in your mind that's open, especially you're wandering along and you're looking at the scenery. And so there's a presence, there's an openness. You're not clogging up your mind with thinking. Same thing in the shower. You're a lot of times, for example, I get a lot of, creativities when I'm in the shower because I'm just not thinking about one particular thing. I'll just notice that my mind is kind of wandering.
Yeah.
And so, that's when you get those things. You just make a note of it and then you do it at your next available time. I mean, sometimes it's urgent and pull over on the motorway if you feel that urgency to do it. But, I make a note of it. And then when I get to my destination, I'll, call Annie or whatever it is.
For me, it's 4 a.m. in the morning. I'll wake up with some idea and I'll jot it down and then I'll go back to sleep. And then I notice when I'm in the shower, it'll continue on from that as well.
Yeah.
But for me, it's been 4 a.m. Do you meditate?
Not on a consistent basis the way that, a lot of people do. I definitely spend time being present. To me, meditation is a tool to take you to being, here.
Yeah.
And to clearing the mind and to making space for awareness and presence. And I do that by pondering. I do that sometimes by going for a run. Sometimes I just sit and I'll light some candles, and some people would call it meditating. I don't close my eyes and sit in a particular position. I just watch the thoughts in my mind, and I do that on a pretty, regular basis, but it's not like I wake up at 4 a.m. and meditate for an hour and then in the evening meditate for, a half an hour or anything like that. Just it's a little bit more loose than that.
It's funny what you were saying earlier. If I say with myself in my consulting role, if I get a company or a person who is in difficulty with their business and they're not sure what to do next, I always say to them, look, forget about what's happened. Don't be thinking about the future. Think of what you can do right now in this very moment to make a change. And by getting them to live and think in the moment, they can move that step forward on it. And is that something that you try and get people to do?
Well, I mean, one of the things that I often say is like, if you don't know what to do, don't do anything. Because a lot of times, like, for example, in using your intuition, like the opposite of intuition is trying to fix, improve, or change things because you're uncomfortable with the way things are.
Yeah.
What I actually get people to do is be comfortable first with whatever has happened, an acceptance of what is before making that next decision, because oftentimes that decision, if you're making it from that place of judgment and discomfort, well, it's not coming from a real true place. It's coming from trying to fix the discomfort that you're experiencing. And so to me, the first step in that situation is actually to be comfortable first with where you are. And then once you reach a place of neutrality, you'll naturally know what you want to do, but it's a lot of people, especially, when something's gone awry, whether it's in business or it's in your personal relationship, there's this tendency to want to, okay, I don't want to feel this discomfort, so I have to fix this, and what I find to be actually more powerful is to first accept the discomfort that's there and then wait for that next intuition to come.
That discomfort, is that fear? Could that be fear-based?
Yeah, usually, yeah, of course. It's it's fear-based and it's emotional. So there's an emotional reaction taking place in the body.
When you're coaching people, what is, we all say that we're all creatures of habit. Is there one thing that sticks out that is a major roadblock for the majority of the people that you coach?
Yeah, I think, the first thing that kind of comes out, I mean, obviously fear, the thinking process. And I think the biggest thing, though, in as a general thing is, there's because because you don't know the future, right? Intuition comes and it speaks of something right now. And it's illogical. It may be to call somebody at 4 a.m. It may be, something bigger than that. Maybe quit your job, change your business. But people oftentimes put security, for example, in let's just call it a business. Like I worked with this guy. I'll give you an example. I worked with this guy, and this was a few years ago. I was living in New York City, and I wanted to do this sales role for him. It was business development, and I was going to start getting him, new business. But I knew enough about intuition at that point. I was sort of in a transition of my own, and I could sense from him that he wasn't really doing what he wanted to do anymore. But I could also sense that the reason why he was hiring somebody like me, and why he was, looking to continue and grow his business, is because, he relied on that business. He had a family based on that business, but it's not what he wanted to really do anymore. But I could sense that everything was tied up in the security of what he had created so far. Okay. And instead of jumping out of his business, and he was an entrepreneur. He created the business 4 years earlier than that. It had been successful, but it felt like it was like there's something else that he wants to do with this business now. But he wasn't doing it, because he'd built this thing, and now what once was this alive, creative endeavor that he had created was this stagnant, rigid, thing that he was relying all his security into, or putting all his security into, or had all his security in. And so I think the biggest impediment to teaching people how to live this way of life is that they get stuck on the next form that comes. They get stuck in, oh, well, this is solid now. Yeah, but 4 years ago, you took a leap of immense risk to build the business to begin with. You could do that again. Yeah,
I think it's life gets in the way. I think there's a fear factor. People, they get married, they have children, they need that support, and they're supporting their family, and it's a kind of going, okay, I'm following this gut, but I'm fearful of doing it. Do I just let go, as Abraham Hicks would say, let the oars go and just go downstream?
For sure, because like I said, you can't see what that next step is leading you to. And that's the awesome thing about intuition, is the more that you follow it, the more that you strengthen that muscle. It's like you not only get to see that you can trust where it's taking you ultimately, but you get this sense of certainty around it. And you begin to know that feeling is really, who you are. It's you, it's this bigger sense of you. Like I talk about, and you can go onto my website and download the first chapter of a book I'm writing. And what I put in this first chapter is what I call this chicken story. And it's this really simple story of how I woke up, decided to intuitively, I felt to put my technology away. And I had this magical weekend where I saw how intuition shows you this bigger picture that you can't always see through a very simple act of buying a rotisserie chicken, or a roasted chicken, from the supermarket. And every intuition that I had was showing me something that I couldn't see in the future. But once I got to that point in the future, I realized, oh my gosh, my intuition, already knew all these things. And so once you have enough experiences like that, and you start to see that your intuition is talking to you, and it's speaking to you of something that you can't always see in this moment. And so when you're having all these different experiences that show you that on a consistent basis, you really learn to trust that there is a bigger picture, or there's something greater than yourself. I don't want to get too caught up in the words, but there is a power that is greater than your limited thinking, allows you to see, and it's you. it's you are that greater sense, and the way that you connect to that greater sense of who you are is through your intuition.
We're just going to take a short break. Are you looking to boost your performance, motivate your sales team, have an all-round structure to your marketing? Get in touch with myself at Breakthrough Brands or contact me at joe@jdc.ie. When you start putting this into practice, when did you notice your life was changing for the better?
Well, the amazing thing is, when you follow your intuition, you're usually doing all the things that you're afraid of doing, which is exhilarating.
Yeah.
And you're doing all the things that you love. So it's a pretty immediate shift. I quit my job immediately that I didn't feel to do anymore. And, I started saying things that made me feel free, that maybe I would have been afraid to say before. And you start to, really own a sense of yourself, and you start to immediately feel more comfortable in your own skin because you're being yourself.
Is it like coming out from?
And there's an aliveness that comes from taking risks on the things that you love that are important for you.
It's like coming out from behind a curtain.
Yeah.
It's like the Wizard of Oz.
and that's such a great example, because what happened in the Wizard of Oz? There was color.
Yeah. Everything changed.
Everything changes. There's everything comes alive. The more that you feel that aliveness and you follow that feeling, you come alive, the world comes alive. You start to see the world as a little bit more malleable, as a little bit more matrixy, because you start to realize that things that you didn't think were possible are way more possible than you ever imagined. You start to see your purpose as I don't want to get too woo-woo or whatever,
I get it.
about it, but it's a little bit mystical. You're getting an insight into your reality that, you would have normally thought, oh, well, that's not real. But the more that you experience those synchronicities that happen from being aware of that sixth sense, which is always sitting there in the background, you start realizing, oh boy, this world is not quite exactly what I imagined it to be. And I am not as limited as I imagined myself to be.
In saying that, what is the future for you then? Where is this all going to lead to?
For myself?
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, I'm writing this book and I'm putting all of these different experiences and pieces of wisdom that I've picked up over the last 8 years into a written form, and I don't know where it's going to go. I just kind of am going with the flow with it. I've never, I think at some point I probably will continue to play a role in people's lives and supporting them to realize, at a deeper level who they are and what their possibilities are, and to get them to feel more comfortable inside their skin as a coach, and, continue to do speaking events and shows like this. And for right now, that's what feels, real for me. I don't really know where that's going beyond that.
What's it about? We're coming to the end of the show. There's one thing I want to ask you. There's 3 questions I ask everyone at the end of each show. Is one, following on from the conversation, what's the best business advice or advice that you've ever received to get you to here that sticks in your mind?
Oh man, business wise, again, I mean, following your intuition. I mean, that's the simple one, obviously. But I just, I think it's more like, don't be afraid of change. And that's not something that anybody ever told me. It's something that, I've learned through following my intuition and things. My mentor talks about this a little bit. It's like you have. It's what I was talking about, that guy. Things change, and that's part of what's fun in business. It's don't be afraid of the changes that are happening. Forms in your business will die, or parts of your business will dissolve. And that's just making space for some new creative part of you to be expressed. So just don't be afraid of the business part changing in whatever form that looks like.
And what book would you recommend for people to read?
Well, I would say Robert Scheinfeld's Busting Loose from the Business Game or Busting Loose from the Money Game.
Lovely.
But warning with that one, it's a real mind bender. And if you're a super intellectual person, you can get really lost. So I love his work and I think that it's valuable as it comes to business. But if you're not ready for something like that, don't pick up that book. And also, if you're going to read that book, you have to make sure that you're accompanying what he's saying with your heart.
Interesting.
You can't intellectualize what he's saying too much. You'll get a little bit out there.
You get a bit lost on it.
Yeah.
I'll have to investigate that. Where can people find you if someone wants to use your services? I'm sure that you take on clients from all around the world. Give us your details where they can locate you.
Yeah, sure. You can go to my website. It is fearlessintuition.com, and you can find all my contact details there. You can also book in for doing an intuitive reading or booking in an exploratory session with me. It's very easy. My schedule's actually on there. You can book in straight away. I also do like problem solving sessions. I mean, my favorite thing that I do is actually a 6-month immersion for people who really want to know the big everything and want to really immerse themselves in who they are and feel a sense of greater connection to the life that they live in and the world. But those other things are also something that I offer.
Excellent. And we're going to play out with a song, so we'd like you to pick the song and the reason why you're picking it.
Wow. I know you sent me an email and I remember reading that and I totally glossed over it. You know what I'd love to play is Brown Eyed Women by the Grateful Dead.
Brilliant. Yeah, our engineer has said, yes, we have that, and we will play out with that. So that's perfect. Kirra, it's been a pleasure to have you on Breakthrough Brands. It's been an interesting interview, and I agree with everything that you're saying.
Cool.
So look, for ourselves, I've really enjoyed it, and thank you for coming on the show.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Getting old. 1920 when he stepped to the bar, he drank to the dregs of the whiskey jar. 1930 when the wall caved in, he paid his way selling red-eye gin. Brown-eyed women in red grenadine. The bottle was dusty, but the liquor was clean. Sound of the thunder with the rain pouring down, and it looks like the old man's getting old.
This show was sponsored by Harris Myers, your sales and marketing agency, helping you develop a better sales and marketing pipeline.